welcome to Petrol Ped. I am sat behind the wheel of a car I've wanted to drive for quite some time now. And yesterday I got an email from the guys at Hendy Ford in Portsmouth, and they said, our new demonstrator's in, would you like to come and drive it? And I said, I'll be there at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. So I reckon we take this car back to the barn and you can find out exactly what it is and whether it's as good as everyone says it is.
Well, you will have probably guessed from the title of the video, or the eagle-eyed amongst you from the interior, but welcome guys to the 2018 Fiesta ST. I think this is a really handsome looking car. It's getting rave reviews, and I have a real soft spot for the Fiesta. A Fiesta was my very first car, although it was a Mark I, and even with fast road cams and K&N air filters, it produced a mighty 66 horsepower. This thing, 200 PS, about 197 bhp, a whole different type of gravy. So let's have a bit of a chat about the various options you've got in the Fiesta ST and a little bit of a chat about the styling. So when you make a hot hatch, what you want is the basis of that car to be a brilliant little car, and that's certainly what the Fiesta is, renowned for its handling. Now, the Fiesta ST has three variants that you can go for: ST1, ST2 and ST3. Basically the difference between those is the amount of kit that comes as standard. It's like packaging up. So ST1 starts at 18,995, ST2 at 19,995, and what we have here is the ST3, which starts at 21,495. This is all pounds for you non-UK viewers, by the way. You can then obviously spec up a few things. The other thing you can do is either have a 3-door or 5-door variant. This is the 5-door variant, probably a little bit more sort of useful if you've got kids accessing into the back seats, but fundamentally it's the same size car, just with 4 doors instead of 2. Let's have a chat about some of the options that have been added to this car, which I think are really important if you want to think about not only enjoying the car but kind of long-term value and resaleability. Now, firstly, this car is not in a standard colour. It's in Ford Performance Blue, which is a really beautiful colour. I'm not sure the camera is going to do it justice, but it really, in this sunlight, looks fantastic. But I think the most important option that this car's fitted with is the ST Performance Pack. Now, that gives you three things, one of which is the key thing, and that is a Quaife limited slip diff. It also gives you launch control and shift up lights, which is a minuscule little thing that flashes when you hit the red line, but the Quaife limited slip diff is the thing you want to go for. Now that's an £850 option, but I think it's well worth it. Other things this car's got fitted are the LED headlamps. I haven't driven the car in the dark, but from my experience of driving cars with LED headlamps, I would certainly go for that. That's a £600 option, and this car's also got the stereo upgrade to the Bang & Olufsen system, which is only 350 quid, but again, premium stereo in a car, for me, resaleability, that's the kind of thing that you would want. And then the thing that this car doesn't have, which I would probably spec, is the panoramic roof, which is an extra £600. So even though when you look at the adverts for these, they say they start at £18,500, if you start ticking the boxes and you want all the bells and whistles, this car comes in at just shy of £25,000, which is a lot of money. So it had better be good out on the road, and it had better be good inside. But I have a feeling it's going to be. Now, first things first, when you get in this car and sit down, these seats are super supportive. They've got really, really high bolsters. I'm not sure how long that one's going to last in terms of wear and tear, but mega supportive seats, and I think they look really cool. And I have to say, I think this is probably the most premium feeling Ford interior I have ever sat in. It just has a really nice feel to it. The steering wheel, I've got lots of rake and tilt adjustments, so I can kind of move it up and down. I like my steering wheel quite close to me, so that makes a driving position that you feel comfortable with really easy to find. The steering wheel's nice and thick as well, flat bottomed, it looks great, and straight away you're in here and you feel like you're in a special car. So absolute top marks for the interior from me. There's a kind of faux carbon fibre-y type look around some of the trims, which I think looks really nice. Every now and again you get the kind of ST Ford Performance thing flash up. But yeah, in here is a really nice place to be. Now let's jump in the back and see what the rear passenger room's like. Okay, maybe not so much rear passenger legroom. If I, oh, there we go. Yeah, I wouldn't want to sit in here for a long journey. It's a small hatch, so I don't expect massive amounts of legroom. That said, the back of these seats is really lovely. There's like leather everywhere in this car. Yeah, I do think though the panoramic roof will just give you a bit more light. It's quite dark in here. I wonder what the boot's like. First, I quite like the look of the car from the back. It's not as aggressive as it might be. It's just got the twin exit exhaust. It's got quite a nice body coloured diffuser, a nice spoiler on the top there. It could be a bit more muscular maybe, but boot-wise, actually this boot is a pretty healthy size. It's 292 litres. It's a 2/3 split, so you can drop the two seats independently to give you more load space. But it's a pretty practical car. Now, I could well get in it and I probably won't shut the boot because I'm filming on my own, and the next thing you see in the papers is a YouTuber killed whilst filming review of new Fiesta ST as he gets trapped in the boot. So one of the big differences then between this new Fiesta ST and the outgoing model is what's under the bonnet. This has a very different engine configuration. The old ST had a 1.6 turbocharged 4-pot. This has a 1.5 turbocharged 3-pot. Yeah, just 3 cylinders under this bonnet, but those 3 cylinders produce 200 PS, that's about 197 bhp in Imperial, and 290 Newton meters of torque. And that's impressive performance figures. 0 to 60 time is 6.5 seconds. Quoted top end 144 miles an hour. Now those are all the figures that an aspiring boy racer are going to be looking at. But the really interesting thing for me that this car does is, even though it only has 3 cylinders, it does cylinder shutdown when the conditions are right on things like motorway cruising to improve fuel economy. I think, well, it's only got 3 cylinders, so yes, it will run on 2 cylinders. This car's some 20% more fuel efficient than the outgoing model. Combined cycle is quoted as 55 miles per gallon. I think in the real world you're likely to get a little bit less than that, but certainly better than the old model. So a really interesting mix of performance on one hand and then cylinder shutdown technology in such a small car. I think it's really impressive. So I think the next thing we need to do is get this car out on the road and find out what it's like driving a Ford Fiesta with 200 PS, because I think it's going to be quite interesting. I've read quotes that this car is very chuckable. Well, I think we need to put that theory to the test on some of my favourite roads. So let's go for a drive. This is the bit I'm looking forward to. I always like giving you guys the... Oh, hello. I always like giving you guys the tour around the car and talking about the specs and all that kind of stuff, but for me it's all about getting behind the wheel and driving the car. Okay, so let's start off the driving part of this review in normal mode. There are 3 settings in this car. If you're familiar with Ford, you'll be familiar with them. So you've got normal, sport and track.
Normal mode, I guess you would drive this car most of the time in that. The suspension is pretty firm in this car, and as you step up through sport and track, then that firms up a little bit, but it's not that bad. It soaks up the bumps okay, and you've still got quite a nice engine tone to listen to. Now, one of the things that this car has, which I'm not sure I've got long enough in the review to talk about, is some pretty trick suspension to kind of optimize the handling, especially the suspension at the back of the car. And if I'm brutally honest, I don't fully understand it, but it's really meant to kind of optimize this car for being chucked about. And as I've mentioned already, the power is delivered through a Quaife limited slip diff, so that should maximize putting the power down on acceleration, certainly on corner exit, and hopefully deal with things like torque steer, although I've got a feeling I'm going to get a little bit of torque steer. Let's get off of this boring road onto some of my favorite roads, and just like I do in my Mini, I'm going to go straight into sport. I don't have this car for very long. Now, one of the things I'm going to get straight away with that is I get a slightly different exhaust tone. Now, it is a bit artificially man-made. When you put it in sport and track, you get two things. You've got some active exhaust management to manage the noise, but you also get some piped exhaust noise through the stereo. But from inside the car, it sounds wicked, and you can really chuck the car around. So let's just see what the feel of the car's like as I come down into this corner. Now, I've got quite nice brakes, I've got really nice positioning for heel and towing, I've got lovely power out the corner, yeah, and it's a quick little car, this. On the brakes, heel toe down into third, chuck it in, and oh yes, it's brilliant round the corners, this thing, wow. So I've got a nice feeling for the sport mode. What I'm going to do now is stick it into the last of the three modes, which is the track or race mode. It says there, for racetrack use only. What it does do is it backs the traction control off quite a bit. I don't know whether it turns it off completely or not, but it's very similar. I quite like turning the traction control off in my Mini. It just gives your right foot full control of what's happening. And when you get to the tight and twisty stuff, hopefully you get that feeling of really being in control and chucking the car around. So if we just chuck it into here, and that front end is really, really grippy, I have to say. And then again with this one, there's not a great deal of understeer, and then you can just accelerate out the corner. It's got some legs on it. That's revving all the way up to 6,000 RPM. Yeah, this car comes alive when you stick it into a corner. It really has an awful lot of grip. You can really feel confidence in both the front and the back end. It's got a nice balance. It's such a hot sunny day today. There's hardly any understeer in there. Sure, if you plant your throttle mid-corner, you're going to get some understeer, but you'd have that in any car, to be fair. But yeah, really impressive. Does it feel quick? It's a quick little car. Now, I've got a base this coming from my Mini, so I've got my John Cooper Works Mini Roadster. That's 211 brake, and I have to admit that does feel a little bit faster and a little bit more up for it. That's not to say this is a slow feeling car at all. Now, this car is fitted with the ST Performance Pack, and part of that is launch control, so it would be rude of me not to give it a go. So in order to engage launch control, you basically go into the menu options and engage launch control from there. You put it in first gear, you put your foot flat on the throttle, it holds the revs at about 3,000 RPM, dump the clutch, and off you go. So 3, 2, 1, go. Hey, now that's not bad. Now what I love about that is whenever I've done 0 to 60 tests in a manual front wheel drive car, it is notoriously difficult to get them off the line. You have to practice quite a lot. But this car does it all for you. It kind of just holds those revs, dump the clutch with your foot flat to the floor, and it just manages putting that traction onto the tarmac to get you the best acceleration, the best getaway, and it does it really well, I must say. Yeah, I was a bit skeptical of launch control, really? Brilliant option. So I've never filmed this in a review before. I've just got in the back to set a camera. Child locks are set, so the only way I'm going to be able to get out, I'm actually stuck in the back of the car. So I'm going to have to basically kind of go through. Not quite sure I'm going to do this, to be honest. Oh, sorry, Todd, for getting marks on your seats. There you go. My iPhone was the only camera I had with me. But yeah, I'm gonna have to reset that camera now. But yeah, beware, child locks in the back. I mean, you can't actually get out the car when you need to. I guess as I've recently driven the Suzuki Swift Sport, the new one, I thought it might be interesting just to compare these two. From the driving pleasure they give you, they're pretty much both tick the box for me. However, the big difference is that Suzuki Swift was £18,000. This is £24,000 as spec. I know you can get them a little bit cheaper than that. So it is quite a lot more money. But sat here in the driver's seat, it feels quite a lot more car. The cabin, the choice of materials is a far more premium feel. But if you want the same kind of driving dynamics and the same kind of driving fun, and are prepared to compromise on cabin, then the Suzuki Swift Sport still needs to be driven. But this thing's so funny. So guys, what are my final impressions of this car? Well, it's a really impressive little package, this. It's so well put together. It looks great from the outside. Maybe I'd have slightly more rugged, masculine lines to it, but that's me being really picky. I love it in this particular colour, and the wheels on this car are very nice. Inside, as I said, brilliant interior, one of the best Ford interiors I've been in. But for me, it's not a car that's about outright pace. It's quick, and it's good fun, and it's no slouch. But it's when you stick it into a corner, that's when it's really, really impressive. It's got this phenomenal traction out of corners and a really sharp, pointy front end that just give you a brilliant driving experience. So, all in all, I'm really impressed with the car, and I've said already, I'm finding it really hard to pick fault at all in this car. I just love it. So I have to say a huge thank you to Hendy Ford of Portsmouth. Todd in particular, this is his new company car actually. The demonstrator literally landed a couple of days ago. He emailed me yesterday and said, would you like to come and review it? And I said, yep, I'll be there at 9 o'clock in the morning. So a big thank you for them for giving me access to the car and letting me share it with you guys. But yeah, very impressive car. But if you've enjoyed this film, then please give me a thumbs up. Comments below are always welcome, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Petrol for plenty more content to come, and don't forget, hit the notification bell. So anyway, I'm going to carry on driving this. I've got it for another couple of hours, but I'll see you guys on the next film. You take care. Drive safe.